Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be speaking to representatives from Kabul University and SAIARD on a topic that is relevant to Afghanistan as well as to other parts of the world. So green marketing and green business, an approach to protect the environment. The first question we need to ask before we undertake this investigation is why. And anyone who's in the business of branding will always ask businesses, why are you doing what you are doing? And this topic has the same underlying question as well. Why are we seeking to protect the environment? The path we take will depend on what the answer to this question is. Are we seeking to protect the environment because we have been told to do so by international organizations, geopolitical forces, or as an opportunity to receive some money to be directed to infrastructure or other directives? Or are we doing it because we recognize that the environment is important for human civilization, for our children and grandchildren? I won't pass judgment on which of those it is, because both in the West and elsewhere, the motivation often is directed along either of those two lines. So green, green, green. Very fashionable, very important as well. Green marketing, we're told, is marketing products that are environmentally safe, but identifying components that are not and correcting and implementing them. Whereas green business are socially and environmentally responsible. I know for a fact that these issues are on the radar in Afghanistan, and there have been some publications in international peer journals discussing this particular topic. The structure that I will discuss this evening is in the context of nation capability building. And this is relevant to many countries, not just Afghanistan. Once you build up your capabilities to develop and protect the environment, then the task is not difficult at all. And also the task becomes sustainable. So what are the elements of this nation capability building program that are required? A mindset change. And this is equally applicable elsewhere in the world, where the mindset is, let's protect the environment. Let's make sure whatever we do, from how we conduct ourselves in the morning when we wake up, when we are traveling, when we are conducting teaching or business, to when we return at home with our family and share a meal and spend the evening together. One of the critical elements is education. We will talk a little bit more about that in the coming minutes. Environmental management, the understanding that managing the environment is critical moving forward. Now, we do it in different ways, and in some cases, we don't do it at all. Problem solving. When you create an environment of problem solving, that enables solutions to be devised for protecting the environment or growing ecotourism, which also has environmental protection aspects. And a lot of this lends itself to entrepreneurship. And of course, climate change is a significant problem facing this generation as well as future generations. And I'm confident that the human spirit will solve this problem. Not sure how, but it will. So what are the stakeholders involved here in this exercise? And in order for this exercise to be successful, it needs to be ruthlessly honest. The citizens, the nation as a whole has particular values and a particular culture. Communities have particular culture and values. The values in the cities are different to the values in the suburbs, to the villages, to the tribal areas. That has to be factored in, honestly. There are niche cultures within cultural groups, within religious groups, within socioeconomic groups. There are institutional culture and values that institutions such as political institutions, government institutions, commercial institutions also have, and they're represented by citizens. So it's important to recognize that it's the citizenry here and their values that need to be captured. Now, corporations, they exist as well. They fit into a number of categories. Many of them are profit-driven and see the protection of the environment as an economic boom opportunity. Their DNA is not necessarily interested in protecting the environment for the environment, but for profit. And that is one of the failings of corporate structures, where in some parts of the world, it's all about the shareholder return. Now, I'm enheartened by the growth, exponential growth of social enterprises, which have become the fashion in the West in the last half dozen years. Also, looking beyond merely the profit to looking at sustainable impact for whatever their target market is, whether it's poverty, whether it's children, whether it's the environment. And these are also stakeholders that we need to bring together in this nation building exercise, because there are a lot of organizations that will grow within Afghanistan, but also from outside that would dearly love to impact the environment within Afghanistan. There are other stakeholders, of course. Government, very, very important. They have policy directives, national interest directives, challenges with international relationships, funding that they provide or do not provide adequate funding for initiatives in this space. Educational institutions, now because of the context of this forum, we'll spend a lot of time on this particular issue. But educational institutions is not just a university. It is the primary school. It is the secondary school. Let's not forget what we mentioned earlier. It is also the cultural values of the community, of the family. These all congeal to create the mindset of a child, of a growing adult. And these are important issues and touch points that need to be factored in when we're looking at nation building capabilities to protect the environment. Of course, there are what I've termed ex-tertiary institutions. They provide courses like tourism, or might provide other courses which directly impact on protecting the environment. Now, on the right side of this slide, we'll see some other characters that are critical, and we all know the reality that they play in Afghanistan. So international institutions such as bankers, they provide the money, money has strings attached. Intergovernmental organizations such as the United Nations and World Health Organization and equivalent for environmental concerns. And I have seen countries in their growth development phase, such as Vietnam, and other countries where money has directly, or Cambodia rather, money has directly been linked to increasing health and occupational safety, increasing welfare, protecting the environment. So as some of these countries move into the international global community, they are forced to change their practices. So these are stakeholders which impact Afghanistan and will do so more and more. Then at last is the geopolitical forces. So we all know what that looks like. The superpowers, each having their impact on the country, and of course having their own national interests, and their interests in some of the superpowers are also to protect the environment. It might be counterbalanced with oil reserves, oil pipelines, exploitation of other mineral resources as well, but some of these forces also seek to attach protecting the environment as an important consideration. So now that we've talked about stakeholders, we want to talk about, okay, well, how does the forum, what's the relevance to green marketing and green business? What are the mechanisms that we need in order to create continuously innovations for the protection of the environment? Entrepreneurship is a great mechanism for this. Now, entrepreneurship, I've entitled as this is in this reality. It's a bold statement, but what it's saying is that if you get the pillars for entrepreneurship right, you will have numerous products and services for protection of the environment, not only in your country, but also internationally. However, what most people forget is that entrepreneurship does not start at a university level. It starts at primary school. And we've seen this with our programs at GOC, where when you speak to the young kids at primary school and secondary school, they come up with amazing opportunities for protecting the environment. So I have divided this slide into two main areas. What should we be teaching at a primary school level? Creativity, innovation, creative problem solving. And it doesn't really matter that it's not in an environmental context, but it may also be in an environmental context. Because when children are opened up to possibilities, their dreaming is without bounds and surprises us often. Teamwork. Now, why is teamwork important? We know about it from a traditional academic perspective and a commercial perspective, but in entrepreneurship, you are interacting with other parts of the supply chain with different skill sets. And the classic story I give was when I was in high school, in one of our camps, I think it was year 9, we were divided into groups of 5, and we were told one person's the head of the group, the other person's the cook, the other person's the navigator, and there were two other people carrying supplies. What happened there was that we were told, here's your map, here's the mountain, off you go, and we'll see you in 4 days. You figure out how you have to get to your various spots. You figure out where you're going to camp for the night and what time you're going to camp. You figure out cooking, and we'll see you in 4 days. And by the way, no mobile phone, no fast food. It's doing it tough. Now, where teamwork came into it is that because we were given specific levels of expertise per person, we had to interact, but rely also on the depth of knowledge of the relevant person. So teamwork is really important. Now, empowerment is equally, if not more important, because when you give people the opportunity to flourish and you don't restrict it, you will notice that the quality of their output is significantly increased. And we know from our kids in primary school, our friends' children in primary school, that in primary school, often creativity, innovation, and empowerment is removed. The older they get, they lose it, and then they get into more traditional education set, which is not helpful in the context of what we're talking about, entrepreneurship. Now, at secondary school, what's the difference? Well, the kids are a bit maturer. They're listening to social media, they're listening to the news, they're listening to their friends, they're becoming aware of some issues in the world, the environment, politics, relationships. They're a bit confused about what's right and what's wrong, but they get a feel for these things. So that's the target also, that you need to focus on creativity. Introduce them to entrepreneurship. What does that mean? How you've got to look at unmet need. When somebody says, I have a great idea, you have to say to them, well, have you assessed the unmet need? Is there a need for it? Thinking big. That's something, again, which often students in secondary school are told, do not do that. Just focus on your activity, get your marks, and off you go. And they love success stories. They love seeing other young people achieve and do well. And they think, wow, I can do that as well. So these are very important considerations that need to be introduced, perhaps strengthened, but certainly introduced in primary and secondary. Okay, now we get to the post-secondary. So all of the tertiary and secondary activities need to be retained. Students need to understand the supply chain mentality. What does that mean? Supply chain. I'd never heard of it when I was at university. Yet when I was undertaking entrepreneurship activities, I got it. It's a bit like a factory. There are various buckets, from the person who's invented the sausage recipe to the time that it's being consumed on someone's table, and might have to travel through several countries and be marketed differently, be priced differently, be packaged differently, and be prepared differently. So the idea that everything doesn't happen quickly and that there are many steps in the chain is something that we need to impress on students. Again, success stories, whatever success stories there are on people who have done well out of entrepreneurship, and yes, in the US there are a lot more than in other countries, but those need to be celebrated. And I'm sure in your country, Afghanistan, as well, there are many local stories of success. Assessment expertise. I'm not talking about the sort of assessment we're aware of. I'm talking about how you assess whether an opportunity has merit beyond the need. Will someone buy it when there are 5 other competing products? Will it sell in Qatar and South Africa, Australia, Switzerland, Myanmar, as well as China and the US? Commercialisation expertise. What is commercialisation? Many students maybe have heard it during their university course, but don't really understand the intricacies. Incubators, where you have either a collection of companies or student groups focusing on protecting one aspect or 2 aspects of the environment, whether it involves IT or engineering or social sciences or whatever, to have them close to each other so they can feed off each other's learnings in an Afghan way. This is one of the biggest take-home messages that I'd like to leave you with during today. This is all about the Afghan way. If somebody comes in from overseas and says to you, stand aside, I've got the toolkit, implement everything I say, that's all you got to do. It doesn't work. It's never worked anywhere in the world. Unless the local values and culture and way of business and life are factored in, you won't be able to protect the environment properly. And it's a bold statement, but I stand by it because I have seen it again and again where clients and governments come to us and say, well, we hired big name consulting firm. They cost us $2 million. They gave us hundreds of pages of reports. They gave us implementation plans, but it didn't work. We didn't know where to start. It didn't fit into our culture. The Afghan way, as is the case for the Australian way in Australia, the Indian way in India, is a key factor which everyone forgets. All right, the institutional role. So what must tertiary organizations as an institution, how should they adopt what we're talking about here? It needs to be pervasive. It needs to be across the university. It's not about one faculty, not about one school, not about one part of the course, year 3, if it's a 3-year program. And it needs to adapt because entrepreneurship is an adaptive modality. Commercialization is an adaptive modality. The phones we have here are different to what we had 10 years ago and are different to 10 years before that. And they will not be the same even in 5 years. Similarly, the challenges and the methodologies to protect the environment will change. Renewables energy is changing all the time. The efficiency of solar cells, the printing of solar cells now on equivalent to paper with the appropriate backing, although the efficiency is poor now, it will improve. Just as the education at the university level needs to improve. So what sort of things are we talking about here? Well, in arts and philosophy and social sciences, what's that got to do with protecting the environment? Well, the environment involves an interplay of the philosophical questions. Why are we doing it? What's the extent to which we need to do it? How will our society fragment or not, or evolve, or needs internal, external, out of country, that is, assistance? How does it impact the people, the social sciences? Are there Will it have an impact on the way the arts are taught, literature is created, poetry? Again, if the focus is protecting the environment, these mindsets need to seep into these programs. Engineering, okay, I get it. Nuts and bolts. We're building bridges. We're building solar holding facilities. We're building water catchments. We're remediating activities. I get it. That's a little bit more straightforward to people. What about sciences? Well, science is, again, not that hard. The invention factory, new inventions for a sway of applications, even in the IT area, even in the eco-tourism area, even in the eco-social enterprise tourism area, where, for example, people come to Afghanistan for tourism, and part of the tourism is they volunteer to assist in projects to protect the environment. Not unheard of elsewhere. And people love it because it gets them down and dirty with the ground and planting trees or whatever they're doing, and they feel really good about it. Business, commercialization, setting up companies, leadership, staff training, human resources, funding of it all. Yep, that's not, again, not that difficult. Politics, where are the next generation of political leaders going to come from? Maybe a little bit from here, maybe a little bit from outside. They need to understand that this is part of policy creation. This is part of being in the international community or in the regional community. You need to have these dogmas, if you will, embedded within the political mindset and process when you're discussing with other groups overseas. How does the political interplay operate there when you're part of international treaties? So there's an interconnectedness that requires a new platform. Not only are you adding units within each of these curricular changes, but you're also developing a mechanism whereby they are being connected together with, like a piece of string. They're all connected together, they all speak together, and just as there are double degrees, science, law, science, engineering, environmental, etc., I foresee a new reality whereby students will say, I want to protect the environment. And you'll say, okay, are you the type that wants to build a bridge? Oh, no, I hate maths. Okay. Are you the type that likes looking at bacteria? Or are you the type that likes looking at how people interact in this conversation? Oh, yes, that sounds interesting. So they have an interplay across a couple of areas. Oh, and do you think you might have an interest in politics? Oh, okay. So there's that element as well. So this is where the future of education is coming to. And as part of nation building in this space, it's essential. So we have institutional connectors. What does that mean? In commercialization, when you are producing products and services to protect the environment, for green business, green marketing, the ideal is to have a market pull. So a product is in dire need by the customer, the country, the region, the Department of Forestry, the Department of Renewable Energy, or to replace electricity which is up and down during certain times of the year. Better to have a market pull, better to have an international market pull. Whatever you do, always ask the question, is this also likely to be needed elsewhere? If the answer is yes, and I'm tipping that in most cases it will be yes, then the value of your product and service has just grown exponentially, maybe by even 2 logarithms. So what are the other connectors that you need here? Education, we've mentioned. Opportunity creation and development. Key persons. So let me just go back to opportunity creation and development. What do I mean by there? When somebody has an opportunity, which is different to an idea, what do they do with it? How do they then develop it? There's a discrete set of people that can help you do that. I want to start a business. I want to do something. I have a social enterprise. I need access to key people to help me. What does a board look like? What does a chief technical officer look like? As we go through this process, I'm not sure what the next step is. I need some mentors. Now, some of these people are going to be local and some are going to be international. They're around. We have to use them. Product development. Again, there are experts who know how to develop a product. They will also be smart enough to say, well, when I'm developing a phone, I want to make sure it's not too big, or it's not too fat, or it charges quickly, or it's not dangerous. Ooh. So they're the elements they come in. Funding. This is an area where everyone gets stuck. And I don't see a reason why they should, but that is the culture, unfortunately. People say to me, Chris, great idea, it'll help the environment, but no one wants to give me money for it. I can't find money. Can you help me? Then I sit on the other side of the table where people with money are saying, Chris, we've got all this money. COVID's stuffed us up a little bit. We are in negative interest land in parts of the world where it costs us to put money into a bank. We are not finding opportunities. Please help us find opportunities. Let's find something that can make a difference and can make us money. So there's plenty of money around. Commercial operations and sales. Okay, so we're about to start a business. How do we do it? There are different divisions of a business. I'm not sure how that works. Then you've got sales and marketing people. How does that all work? There are connectors out there that can do that. As I said, some are within country and some are without country. So like this arrow demonstrates, these are hurdles, but like all entrepreneurs, you're constantly looking up and with a positive mindset. All right, protecting the environment. Back to the why on slide 2. Are we talking about the environment to help the environment, or are we talking about the environment in order for a financial benefit or geopolitical benefit? They're 2 different directions. They require 2 different approaches. And I'm sort of banking on the one which says you actually want to save the environment. In order to do that, in addition to creating the nation building capability we talked about, you already have a lot of assets. You have local knowledge over many generations of what regions of your countryside are like, what requirements are also for energy within small towns, cities, capital city, Kabul. There is international expertise. There are a stack of people who provide solutions in different parts of the world. And that's what they do day in, day out. There are partners, local and international, with joint vision. Got to find them, but when you go down that route, they also look at you because they say, oh, hang on a second, you're well trained, you've got a mindset now, and you've got some political freedom to do something, and there's some money people who are supporting you. I'd love to partner with you in order to help with whatever your protect the environment initiative is. The important thing is with joint vision, and remember what we said earlier, in an Afghan way, because that's the context, the key underlying context in any of this. Stakeholders and geopolitical agenda to add this as a national interest. I have found in many countries, oh yes, we love commercialization, we love the innovation, we love the environment. And you say, well, at Prime Minister level or cabinet level, you say, is it a national interest? Oh, no, we're sort of more concerned about mining and education and yeah, but it's really important. Well, no, if it doesn't get on the national interest platform, it's not that important. So that's one of the things that politics needs to elevate. So, as I just said on the previous slide, who has the control to protect the environment? We need political permission. We need policy freedom to create the policies, whether it's adopting and modifying policies from overseas or creating bespoke policies for particular regions of the country. We need business freedom. We need initiatives which says to business, come in under our general policy above. We would love to have you and we will encourage you to find solutions for the environment. Business needs that. Without that confidence, business doesn't come. People and entrepreneurship freedom. Similarly, government saying, yes, we're elevating this to a national interest. We want to protect the environment. We're providing freedom for policies, and we're allowing business to come in, and we have maybe some benefits. And therefore, underneath that, the people will come in. And with entrepreneurship freedom, they come up with the ideas and they come up with the pathway to create products and services. So a nation capability program is needed. Well, thank you very much. That's all. Thank you for the privilege to be here, and I look forward to working with Afghanistan in order to achieve the wonderful and critical objective of protecting the environment. Thank you.